Alright, this particular video, since I was just reading about it, in fact I have it right here, I recommend that you, if you have not read this, it is the Emerald Tablet of Hermes and the Kybalion combined into one book. Basically, who Hermes Trismegistus was more a mythological figure from Egypt, who basically gave us all the wisdom that we have today. He gave us writing, mathematics, geometry, and all the other forms of an education that you could think of, essentially. And it's very possible that he was also a real being, if not a human, because of this divine wisdom that he contained within himself. You can read up on him, just Google search Thoth is the Egyptian version, or Hermes Trismegistus. I want to go over the 7 Hermetic principles. The first principle is mentalism, and this basically means that everything that exists comes from mind, ultimately. Everything emanates from one single consciousness that goes to another, to another, to another, and it goes on for infinity, and we're just a part of it. We're infinite consciousness basically having an experience on the physical plane. So everything comes from the mind. The all is mind. The universe is mental. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below. This basically states that all the little things are in correspondence to all the larger things. If you take the universe and you keep zooming out and looking at it from a larger and larger perspective, you'll see that ultimately you'll just be repeating the same process over and over again. I believe it's the synapses in the brain possibly are also correspondent to things that are in the universe. Our eyes look like, I'm not sure what you should look up to find this, but just look up the microcosm and the macrocosm. It's really kind of difficult to explain, but basically all you need to know is the small things are the same as the large things. As above, so below. As it is on heaven, it is on earth, in a different form, but it is the same thing. The principle of vibration, nothing is at rest. So this pillow here, for instance, is not really at rest. It's not actually solid. There's little atoms vibrating all through it, but we just can't pick up on it because we're not resonating on that high of a vibrational level. The principle of polarity, this is the yin and yang. There's opposites, which aren't actually opposites. If you look at temperature, it's just different degrees of the same thing. Hot and cold are on the same thermometer. You can't really see where hot begins and where cold begins. It's just different degrees of the same thing. The principle of rhythm. Everything has its rhythm and its flow, its input, its output, its tides, its risings and fallings. It doesn't mean that you have to go with the flow always, though. The flow is going to happen, but if you have the willpower, you can actually stay where you want to be in that rhythm of events. Cause and effect. Everything has its cause and everything has its effects. In science, this is probably better known as, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So one thing will affect another. Everything's interconnected in that sense as well. And the principle of gender, which on the physical plane comes across as sex, essentially. That's the physical manifestation of gender. But there's also much more sublime and celestial versions of gender as well. I've talked about this in another video. The left and the right brains of the hemisphere, the male, the masculine, and the feminine. The masculine is linear and logical, while the feminine is creative and intuitive. That's a very brief summary of the 7 Hermetic principles, and there is also an 8th overlying principle that talks about all of them. But I recommend you research this for yourself, because that's universal knowledge right there, and I'm just beginning to learn it. Take care.